Welcome to AV Rant. This is Tom Andrew, and I'm here with
Rob H. This is AV Rant. It's your home theater and AV questions answered. And in my neck of the woods, it went winter, 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 summer. We had no spring. Jumped up 20 degrees in 2 days.
That's Celsius, so that's
Celsius. That's right.
It's a pretty significant jump.
Yeah,
For those of you that aren't familiar, when you get to 37 Celsius, you want to kill yourself a little bit.
That's exceedingly hot. I mean, we peaked at 29 Celsius today, which is warm. It's actually quite pleasant. But when you were at 9 degrees just 2 days ago, it feels a lot hotter. You know what I mean? So that's been what has been going on. It's also why I have a fan in the background. So for people watching live, I apologize. There'll be fan noise.
It's 29 degrees. It's not that hot. What is that, like?
It's not that
70
hot.
something, 80 something, maybe at the most.
I forget.
I can't.
1.8 plus 32. I don't know. But anyway. Yep. You take
70
Celsius.
something, 70, low 80s. The fan? It was like 93 today or something.
I don't want to sweat.
It was fun. All right.
It's 84 degrees. It's not nothing.
As a reminder, I will not be here next week, so Rob will be here with the co-host. Have you lined anybody up yet, Rob?
No, because the last time you talked about it, you said you might just postpone it a day and be back. But now
I'm
that
not
I know
going to.
you won't
In
be
fact,
here.
No, for sure. We changed our plans, so I might be gone for an entire week. Which is kind of nice for me. My wife she was going to miss like half a day on Thursday and the whole day on Friday, and then we were all going to have to come back on like Tuesday.
Right.
And instead of doing that, she's just going to work the rest of the week and then leave on like Friday evening or Saturday morning. It's only like 2 hours away. We're not going anywhere. We rented a house via Airbnb. Mm-hmm. It's got, and this is what I said. I said, listen, stop talking to me about where we're going. I do not care. I am going to have a t-shirt made. On the front of that t-shirt, it's going to say no. On the back of the t-shirt, it's going to say whatever. Those are my answers to all of the questions from the children. So when they come to me, I am either going to face them and point at my shirt, or I'm going to turn around and point at my shirt. I want a place where it's got a pool and stuff to do, and I don't care what else is around it. I don't want to go to the beach. I don't want to go outside. I mean, I would love to go climbing, but none of you people want to do that, so that's fine. So they found a house. It's got a pool. It's got a pool table. It's got a ping pong table. It's huge. It's got smart TVs in every room. I'm sure it's got a terrible sound system. I'm going to stay in that house, and I am not leaving for a week.
All right.
I am going to sit there. I'm going to read some books.
It's a staycation in a different location.
It's exactly what it is. And then we're bringing some bikes. They have some bikes. The kids are going to ride around. The kids are going to spend all day in the pool, jumping around, being idiots. We're going to take one road trip over to Miami because I've never been there. I want to have a Cuban sandwich in Miami. I don't know why. Ybor City is right here in Tampa, and that's where they invented the Cuban sandwich. But whatever, I want to go to Miami and have one. And one of the people that we're going with wants to go on the airboat ride, and I'm going to do that too.
All right.
That's what I'm doing. That's it. But I won't be
I
here
hope
for the
you
podcast.
enjoy. And I hope I find someone to podcast with me.
I'm sure they're lining up at the doors. They're like, yes, finally we don't have to listen to Tom's incessant not preparedness all the time. Speaking of which, I haven't even read any of these questions. I read 2 questions right before the podcast started because my wife's birthday last weekend. So happy birthday to my wife. She is 25 years old, 20 years running. 21 years running? I don't remember. But her 25th birthday is old enough to drink, I think, is what it ends up being. So she's it was a good birthday. She wanted to do active things, so we were active all weekend. We went roller skating, we went climbing. I feel like that's all we did, but we did other things too. I just can't remember. So it was fun. We had a good weekend. Oh, she went out to breakfast. She really wanted to go out to breakfast because I don't like to go out to breakfast, so we don't go out to breakfast. Not that I rule these things, but she's like, well, if you're not going to eat, I don't understand. I'm not going to go. I'm like, fine. I'll eat bacon. Everybody eats bacon. Vegetarians eat bacon. All right. This is AV Rant, the podcast that answers your home theater and AV questions. Get your questions answered. All you have to do is ask. You ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. You can go to www.avrant.com and leave us a comment there. You can go to youtube.com/c/avrant, where you will find all of our videos. That includes the full 2-hour plus video of us talking to each other throughout the whole thing, or the sliced up videos of just the questions being answered.
I've noticed that for some reason we get more views of the behind-the-scenes live broadcast that shows no images and we're off-center and we have noise in the background, but apparently people prefer that to the finished product, just going by number of views. So, all right.
I think that might just be a frequent. They're watching it while it's happening, right?
No, but the views continue to go up at a rate higher than the finished product once that's posted the next day. So, okay. If that's what people want, I'll give it to them.
We've got a better product anyways. But anyways, you also go to facebook.com/AVRant podcast, right? I lost my train of thought there. It is AV Rant podcast on Facebook.
That's right.
Twitter, if you want to contact, well, actually, if you want to contact Rob, you just rob@avrant.com. His Twitter is @FirstReflect. I'm @AVRant_Tom. My Twitter is that is my Twitter.
Did your Twitter.
My email, I am so very tired. I'm sorry, my Twitter is my email is at tom@avrant.com. I'll get it. I'm getting there.
Yep. Tom@avrant.com. It's
I
very
wish
complicated,
there was a
but there it is.
big monster drink right next to me right now to explain away my inability to talk, but that's not it. I'm just mind flooded.
540 episodes, finally forgot how to talk. That's how podcasts go.
That's what happens. We're hitting that. I got the yips. I never knew the yips was a thing until I heard the guy talking about it on NPR the other day. The yips. Have you ever heard of yips? You know what yips are?
I've heard the phrase. I don't really know what it means, though.
Baseball thing where people get the yips and they can no longer throw the ball straight or something.
Gotcha.
Weird. I got
Psyched
the yips.
out, we would say.
If you want to contact our producer, Austin, who puts together all our videos and helps with the question list, you can at Austin, TEN Pond. He has his own podcast, the We Watch Movies podcast. We Watch Movies podcast about time-released capsules and which capsule types time-release the best.
Okay.
They do special tests with, like an acid solution that's similar to what's in your stomach, hydrochloric acid, and the other ones that are in there. I know hydrochloric is in there. There's like 4 of them. And they drop them in there, and they test them, and they talk about them and stuff. It's terribly boring.
All right. We Watch Movies. What else would it be?
What are you going to do? You're going to say, I'm not going to take this Advil because it doesn't have the right time-release capsule skin on it, and it releases slightly faster than it claims on the bottle. Who does that? You're like, I need the Advil. Can we not time-release it? Can I just have it all right now? I don't know. It's a very strange podcast. They're very strange men. And one woman on that podcast, but I don't think she's shown up in a while. All right, in the news.
Oh, well, we should just mention listeners of the week. We don't have any this week.
No listeners.
But you can become a listener of the week. You go to avrant.com. You go over to the right-hand side, click on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee. That takes you to PayPal. You don't have to have a PayPal account. It can just be a credit card. But if you want to give us a donation, help support the podcast financially, we greatly appreciate that. It does cost money to do the podcast, still in the red, so every bit would help. There's that. And if you want to tell a manufacturer, leave us a review, a rating, anything to help out the podcast, let us know. We'll make you a listener of the week. There you go.
That's right. Back to the news. In the news from Chris, I am going to close this window here because it's bothering me. Chris, Amazon 4K video with HDR is now officially supported and available on the Xbox One S. Mm-hmm. Is it only the One S or the?
Well, yeah, because that's the original Xbox One doesn't output 4K video at all. So, yeah. Is
the other Xbox One come out yet? The one that was
Scorpio? No, Scorpio's coming out in November.
Anyways, it joins Netflix, Vudu, and Hulu, as well as Microsoft's own video and TV section in offering 4K HDR content. HD Guru has posted a review of the Laco UMax 85. So this is that manufacturer that, other than having a really stupid name, also has really stupidly low prices. So we've been very interested.
Yes.
Overall, it's pretty favorable. Off-axis viewing is probably the big
didn't have
point.
Great video processing of anything
Shocking
below
nobody.
1080p. Yeah. But if you're going to get an 85-inch screen with 448 zones of local dimming for $5,500, you know what? If they want to skimp on the 1080i upscaling, 1080i deinterlace, I'm like, okay, you get a better source, right?
Right.
Something else that can deinterlace
with the $5,000 you saved, you can buy yourself a better source.
What I like most of all is they're basically one of the downsides they mentioned is that it's difficult to calibrate. So first of all, it doesn't have any color management system to speak of, and the controls that come up actually interfere with the test patterns because they're too large and kind of in the middle of the screen. So like it's a pain to calibrate, but on the other hand, you don't really need to because it's very accurate out of the box.
Yeah, I know. You look
So
at
it's
the
like,
little
okay.
thing, like it's you know it's really hard to calibrate or whatever. Very few calibration options, and they show like how off it is. I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, it's like
not.
right there.
Well, I mean, for perfectionists, it's going to be a pain, but for everyone else in the world, it's like you set it up, you put it in movie mode, you adjust your brightness and contrast for your ambient light, and you're done. So,
For perfectionists, they're going to deal with the menus. That's what they're
Yeah,
gonna
exactly.
do. I mean, they're just going to deal with because once you calibrate, you're done. You don't have to do it again. You know, pretty
So
much
at least
done.
that's one thorough review saying it's pretty darn good. So that's nice
I'm
to
glad. I'm glad. I would
Yeah.
like to start recommending these things to people.
Yeah.
But I
More
can't until
confidently.
Yeah. So Denon launched their X2400H, which is $800, and X1400H, which is $600. These are, of course, their entry-level receivers. Pretty close to it, though, at least.
Well, in the X series, yeah.
In the X series, that explicitly mentioned Dolby Vision and HGL support, or HLG. I swear, I'm never going to get that right. HGL just seems more right. I don't know why. It just does. Some outlets have erroneously reported being able to use HEOS speakers as wireless surrounds and the ability to use Atmos in 2.0.2 or 3.1.2 configurations. Neither of those things are true. So don't listen to the lies. All speakers need to be physically wired, and Atmos only works with 7 speakers connected. So you have to have all like a 5 and then 2 above. Is that what it is?
Yep. The 5 normal and then 2 overhead. And what I like about Denon is that they give you the option front heights, top middles, Dolby upfiring fronts, Dolby upfiring surrounds. You pick one of those, but they give you all of those options, which like other manufacturers don't. They're just like, you have something overhead.
There is somebody now who's like, but what about rear heights? Yeah,
well,
you do not need rear heights.
0.2. No, 5.1.2. But the other stuff about potentially using HEOS speakers as wireless surrounds, that's clearly people got confused between these, which are what they call HEOS capable AV receivers.
Right.
Because they can act as a HEOS zone, versus they have a product at Denon called the HEOS AV receiver. And that can use a pair of HEOS speakers as its wireless surrounds, but it tops out at 5.1. So it's a separate product. I can see where the confusion came in, but want to make sure people know you got to wire all the speakers to this thing.
Yeah. I got some comments from some listeners here. Roberto had the Denon AV receiver that was going into protection mode ever since he plugged in his vinyl player, his record player. I want to call it a record player, but I don't think anybody knows what I'm talking about when I say that anymore.
It's why I typed. I don't want people to get confused, but yes, vinyl record player. There you go. That makes it clear.
I don't know. Anyways, we insist that there was a speaker wire short someplace, maybe even accidentally caused by the vinyl player's RCA cable brushing against some speaker wires. Reluctantly, he did as we suggested. He unplugged every speaker and took great care to ensure no stray strands and nothing lying across the top of any of the speaker wires. And so far, everything works. So, sorry to be right about that one, but we're usually right about that one. And I feel the same way. I feel this every time I saw it. I'm like, every time my speaker goes, like my receiver, it doesn't happen very often, but there'll be like 3 years since it's happened. All of a sudden, I'm like, it's a speaker wire. I have to go back there and deal with this nonsense every single time, man. It is a speaker wire every single time. Larry just wanted to give a shout out to Austin for putting together all the individual YouTube videos. He likes to watch the complete 2-hour videos for entertainment, but he finds the individual videos very helpful when looking for a particular segment or an answer to a specific question. So Larry loves you, Austin.
That's right.
Good.
Want to make sure Austin knows his work is appreciated because it's a lot of work.
It is work, yeah. James.
For no pay.
So this comes from our listener James. He's our occasional guest host. You might hear him next week. Who knows?
It could.
He wanted to share some pictures of his new setup. He and his wife have downsized, so no more dedicated home theater. That is not acceptable, James, but whatever. They chose instead to turn the guest room farthest from the master bedroom into a TV room. They purchased new furniture and a new 65-inch Sony 4K HDR TV. The audio setup is 7.1 using an Outlaw Audio 950 processor, Emotiva amp, and Snap AV episode speakers and 12-inch. That confused me. And a 12-inch subwoofer. The 12-inch subwoofer is also from Snap AV.
That's correct.
Yep. Okay. So I guess you're seeing pictures of that someplace.
Yep. Posting some pictures, and the one The one thing I gotta say, and now James was making it clear everything wasn't completed in these things. Like he doesn't even have his surround speakers set up in these images. So, but I was just gonna say, I'm like, those speakers are pushed way back on that entertainment unit or credenza or whatever, the front left right speakers. So
They are awfully, yeah, they're going to be able to bounce off the thing. But there's like two pictures of the TV, and one of them has itty bitty speakers, and one of them has big speakers.
Well, yeah, he brought his Yamos in just for fun, just for kicks at one point.
So you're talking about the little speakers are pushed way back?
The little speakers are the episode ones. Yeah, they're pushed back, but the Yamos, he's got an image of those. Those are pushed back too. So
I would
I don't know if that's how you're listening to him, James.
Things. Yeah, James, just wall mount those things. See
or
what I mean?
bring them forward on that TV stand because
that's never going to happen.
What
that's,
you do.
That's the wife doing that, I bet.
Could be.
So I would push those back. I mean, I would wall mount them, but yes, they need to be. The Yamos look a little big. All right, some questions from last week. I guess we got a couple left over. Mark. So Mark bought a used JVC X500 projector thanks to our advice. He doesn't have the screen yet, but just projecting on his living room wall, and he and his wife are blown away. The fact that it's motorized zoom, focus, and lens chip allow him to have 3 different screen sizes that he wants makes it even more exciting. This is the dude that wanted to have, like...
Yeah, he wanted the small image for 16:9, then that same height but wider for 2.35:1 with do-it-yourself masking on his own screen, and then have that same width as 2.35:1, but then make it taller for IMAX. So he wanted the option to have all 3 of those screen sizes. Now he's got this projector that has motorized zoom, focus, and lens shift, and a lot of zoom range and a lot of lens shift range. So he can set up memories for each of those 3 setups, and off he goes.
Yeah. So he's trying to decide between a ceiling mount and a rear shelf mount. He'd find a rear shelf mount to be an easier install, but is there any gigantic benefit to a ceiling mount that would make it worthwhile? No.
Nope.
I mean, with this projector, okay. The problem with this, with a mount on this on a shelf high up, is that sometimes your screen is too low for the projector to shoot it down. You shoot it down that low. I've run into that with some budget projectors, but I am guessing you're not going to have that problem with this.
No, you have 3 picture heights of lens shift in this JVC.
Jeez.
So it can be anywhere in the height of that room.
So that's great. So yeah, I would totally go with the shelf. It's way easier.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I'd mention is it's quite a deep projector, like from front to back. It's quite a heavy projector, so make sure that rear shelf mount is a sturdy and deep enough shelf mount.
And they're not hard to find, dude. You just want like an L mount. I mean, and with a crossbar, and it'll tell you when you buy them what they're rated for. And it's like, I think the ones I've got are rated for like 150 pounds or something. I could probably do pull-ups on the thing. So,
But the JVCs are nice and quiet, so having it behind you on a shelf, I mean, it won't be dead silent if the rest of your room is dead silent. You might be able to hear the slight whir of the fan, but as soon as anything's playing, you won't notice it. They're nice and quiet. So, rear shelf mount is great there.
All right, he's using 3 SVS Prime bookshelf speakers up front, and since they're rear ported and close to a wall, he put 2-inch thick DIY absorption panels behind them. I guess we're seeing a picture of that.
Yes,
He's happy with the sound right now, but with the projector screen going in, he was thinking of wall mounting or shelf mounting the front 3 speakers instead of using stands. He'd still like to have absorption behind the speakers, though, so how can he accomplish this? Should he build some smaller absorption panels that could simply sit right behind the speakers on the same shelves? He's going to have a... What is the is it going to be acoustically transparent? They're behind it because that's kind of
it's not planning to be an acoustically transparent as far as I know.
Yeah, dude, why don't you just take a little piece of insulation and just wrap it in that whatever fabric that you did? Make a little frame for it just like it before.
Yeah,
sit right behind there. I see no problems with that. I mean, you don't all the rest of the absorption that's coming off of that thing is helping you with room reflections. But if really all you want to do is catch that direct back, right behind the speaker thing, you could put a little something back there.
Absolutely.
I mean, you could cut a hole in your current one and put a mount in it. I mean, in theory, and do it that way.
I'm not sure how easy. Well, I guess you could use like a hole saw, go right through your existing panel, and then just sew in, to make sure, because I'm sure that fabric stretches a little.
Oh, I'm sure it stretches. You usually stretch it pretty tight over these things. So I mean, you would have
Yeah.
to
So you
redesign
could,
the
yeah,
panel
you
to
could
do
go
that.
with like those video secu side clamping wall mounts that I like quite a bit because they can support quite a bit of weight. These are the
Right.
prime bookshelf speakers. So they're not super heavy, but they're not super light either.
Yeah, they're all
So
right.
video secu has the side clamping ones, and that gives you the ability to tow them in and tilt them as well, because not all wall mounts give you that ability easily, nor does a static shelf. So yeah, you could do something like that. You could stretch the current fabric, put a hole saw through your existing panel, then put the fabric in, tie it down so that nothing flays out, and then you can put the wall mount right there.
Yeah,
into
if
your
I were
existing
you,
panel
I
if you
would
want to.
take your existing fabric off, mount it, get it all set up so that you can mount it again. And then, I mean, if you wanted to do it that way, I mean, it's almost more
Or
trouble than it's worth, to be honest.
If you just
with
want to put up shelves on the wall and make yourself some new panels that can just go behind the speakers, that will also work fine.
And then put some below it and above it if you want to as well. It doesn't make any
Sure.
difference. Just be just new panels, just new sizes.
Yeah.
Nathan. So Nathan's parents need a new AV receiver, and they also want sound for the patio outside. Nathan was thinking that a wireless speaker would be best for the patio, and he was leaning towards some Marantz SR7011 for the receiver, and so that got them thinking about Hios. He was pretty clear on being able to use Hios smartphone app to send audio to the wireless Hios speaker or to the Marantz receiver, but where it's a little unclear is whether they can easily send sound from, say, their cable box, which would be plugged in via HDMI, to the into the Marantz receiver, and from that to the wireless speaker outside. So can we help clear up this confusion for him? I was just getting into this question when we started the podcast, so I did not know, but my feeling is that anything that's connected shouldn't anything be connected digitally have no problems going to a Hios speaker like this?
So it's a little bit tricky with Hios because Hios is, for all intents and purposes, stereo only. There's some minor exceptions to that, but the easiest way to think of it is stereo only. And in the case of a Hios capable AV receiver like the Marantz SR7011, whatever its capabilities are for Zone 2, those are essentially its capabilities for Hios.
Oh, okay.
So, for example, in the lower model ranges, you can only send an analog stereo connection to Zone 2, and that is also the case for Hios. In the upper range, like the SR7011 is basically the flagship in Marantz's current receiver line, it can send an HDMI connection, an optical audio, a coax audio, or an analog stereo connection, but stereo only.
And
So
it won't downmix it for you?
Well, that's where if you are only playing one source out of one Hios device, then it can downmix. But as soon as you want to play it out of more than one device, it has to be a stereo only signal to originally. So that's the kind of weird exception. But in my opinion, it's like, well, that's not worth even futzing. Like, just stereo only, that way it works, right? That's the easier way to think of it in my mind. So to answer the first question directly, yes, you can play, like, let's say your cable box is plugged into your Marantz receiver. You can, what you would do is you go into the Hios app, you select the Hios speaker that you want to use. So let's say they're using the Hios 1 because that's the water resistant one that can even have an optional battery attached to it, be very easy to take outside. And you can use two Hios 1s as a stereo pair, very easy to set up. So that's a great option for going outside. But you would first select those Hios 1 speakers as where you want the sound to come from. Then you go to the next tab, which you choose where you want the sound to come from, like the source of the sound. So there, you would go to the Inputs tab, and then you would select the Marantz receiver, and then you would select the cable box input. And now the cable box sound will be coming out of your Hios 1 speakers. But if you want the sound to come out of your Hios 1 speakers and the Marantz receiver, like you want to be able to walk in and out of the house and have the sound inside at the TV and outside as well, then it has to be a stereo signal coming from your cable box. So an easy workaround is you have HDMI connected when you want to just watch TV and watch it in full surround sound, and then use a separate input, like say the tape input, with just the analog stereo connection coming from your cable box into the Marantz, and that's the input you select when you want to watch both at the same time.
But isn't there a delay? Like if you're watching in two sources, like an inside, like from the Marantz and from the speaker someplace. There's some
Outside
sort of
speakers,
delay.
yes.
Yeah, okay.
So
1.5
by default,
seconds? Is it 1.5 seconds?
yeah,
or
it's
something?
1.5 seconds. Yeah, by default, it's 1.5 seconds. But there is a setting you can go into the Hios app again, and they actually have a thing for TV sound. And that lets you set the latency as low as 40 milliseconds. It's essentially a buffer. That's what it is. If you set it that low, you basically have no buffer, so they warn you if your network connection between all the devices in this little Hio setup is not rock solid, then you're going to get problems because there's no buffer. Right. By default, they give you a 1.5 second buffer. You can lower that to anywhere between 250 milliseconds all the way down to 40 milliseconds. But now it's just a straight stream with no buffer. So if you don't have a perfect network connection, you could get stutters. But that's
the
not too
TV
bad.
room and the outside is far enough away where you're not going to notice. You're not going to hear them both at the same time. Or if maybe they're
well, 1.5 seconds is significant, though. So
I know, but I mean, I've been in situations like my parents' house. Up in North Carolina before they moved down here, like their theater room was upstairs in like a bonus room, and you had to walk all the way downstairs and outside in order to hear the outside.
Right, so by the
speakers.
time you walk there, you'd have no idea.
No idea whatsoever, and no one ever listened to the same thing up in the home theater that they were listening to outside, anyways.
Right.
So it was never really an issue, but even if it had been, so this is just good information for you, so you can use that to make your decision.
Now, for Nathan and everybody else, I did just want to mention, in a situation like this is where personally I prefer Yamaha's MusicCast system. Because the cool thing about MusicCast is you can have full surround, you can have Atmos playing in your home theater and then play that same source, your Ultra HD Blu-ray player, out of any MusicCast speaker. It will down mix to stereo while continuing to play full surround sound in the main zone. So MusicCast has that capability. That's cool. I like that it has that.
What's the flagship Yamaha price comparison to this one?
Right, so the flagship Yamaha right now would be the A3070. That's $2,000. So I think the retail price on the SR711 is higher, but you can get it accessories for less. So I'll have to look that up. But yeah, just if you're open to it, I do actually like Yamaha a bit better for their MusicCast system, but there's a fairly easy workaround with Hios. So
Yamaha really has to start putting their better room correction stuff in lower end models so we can start recommending them more. Yeah. That's the only problem I have with Yamaha right now. I do like the MusicCast as well. It sounds like a much better solution than Hios. Denon is definitely behind on this technology.
Hios really isn't bad. It's just if as long as you stick to stereo only for anything that's going to be Hios.
Well, there you go. You see, that's my problem right there. As long as you do this one thing, then it's great. Well, the problem is you are making me have to do this one thing that I don't want to have to do. I don't want to have to do any of that. That's the whole point of this, is supposed to be convenience. And Yamaha is doing it, so why am I going with your system? Well, we have Odyssey. All right. That's why I'm going with your system. But that's why I'm saying Yamaha needs to come down with this RSC with, the Y-Powered RSC and all this stuff. They've got to come down with that so that they can be more competitive with Denon and Marantz. Because once they do, it's going to be on.
Retail price is the same as Yamaha's, so they're very comparable price-wise.
Right. Okay. Michael stumbled across AV Rent a few months ago, and he's hooked, although he says he doesn't have time to go back and listen to all 500-plus episodes. Don't worry, dude. You're not missing a lot. Okay. You don't want to. Because
Neither do we.
Believe me. I've got them all on disc, and I've got them all on Wave. The early ones were in Wave and MP3, and now they're in FLAC and MP3. And I've got just stacks of DVDs full of these things.
They're probably all degrading by now.
How do they get degraded? They've just been sitting in this case I've never been listened to. I mean, I don't even know if could not even be good transfers for all I know. So, anyways, he's under the impression that we don't like 20-part questions. So even though there's a lot he'd like to ask, he's going to dole them out a little at a time. That is not true. Rob loves 20-part questions. I am the one who has a problem with 20-part questions, though I will happily answer them, and that's fine. You can dole them out or not, whatever. I don't really care. You're not going to hurt my feelings, Michael, one way or the other. Anyways, he wants to start with whole house audio. He and his family are moving into a new house. He has no prior whole house audio equipment, so he started from scratch. But he's already looked into equipment and done some research, and he's decided to use Hios for everything.
All right.
Going to be Hios Day here on AV Rant. Background info and details. This house is single story and the ceilings are 14 feet high. All of the speakers need to be in ceiling, including the 5.1 setup in the family room that can act as a surround sound system for TV watching, and also as a whole house audio zone via the use of the Hios capable AV receiver. The plan is to house all of the whole house audio. There's too many houses in this. The plan is to house all of the whole house audio equipment, as well as networking and an HTPC in a centrally located closet. He'd be okay with non-circular speakers if in the ceiling if that means better sound.
So I did want to address the non-circular speaker thing right off the bat.
Yeah, okay.
Because there are some non-circular in-ceiling speakers, like Kef makes square and rectangular in-ceiling speakers, but you do want to make sure in this case that they truly are rated in-ceiling, because there are code things that you have to concern yourself with. You said it's a single story. That means that your ceiling goes to your attic.
Attic, right.
So the fire rating, there can also be like water penetration rating things as well in some cases. So all of the things have to be up to code. So you want to make sure that you, in this case, really are getting in-ceiling speakers, not repurposing regular speakers, or even some in-wall rated speakers are not rated for in-ceiling. So you want to make sure that you're getting in-ceiling. That's all I'm saying.
And I don't really think the shape of the speaker makes any difference whatsoever in the sound.
Not particularly. Not in this case. And 14 feet high, it's going to be diffuse no matter what you do.
Yeah. So I really don't think that you need to be worried about the shape of the speaker as much as you are about the quality of the speaker, and whatever shape it is the shape it is. Yeah. All right. So let's get into this. For the kitchen, family room, and master bedroom, he wants really excellent sound. But then you don't want in-ceiling speakers, but okay.
Well,
you don't want in-ceiling speakers that are 14 feet away from you, but let's go.
Within the confines of this situation, as good as it can get. There you go.
All right. He wants to be able to really crank it in these 3 rooms. He tends to include a subwoofer in each of these 3 rooms as well.
Okay.
One subwoofer? What? Okay. Is that going to be an in-wall subwoofer or an in-ceiling subwoofer? Because those are options as well.
He didn't mention that because that's coming up. He mentions he wants it to be on the smaller size side, but he didn't say in.
Dude, if you're willing to, if you're going to do everything in wall, why not do an in-wall subwoofer as well? That doesn't make any sense to me. You might as well.
True.
You're doing it anyways, right? And there are some. They're expensive, but they're out there. All right. He intends to use a Hios amp, which is $500, or a Hios drive, which is $2,500, which includes a subwoofer output.
4 zones built in directly into that Hios drive.
Is that what it is? 4 zones. 4 stereo zones?
4 stereo zones. So 8 amplifiers built into the thing, and 4 independent Hios zones all in one rack mountable unit. So that's what the Hios drive is all about.
4 zones. Hios drive. But 1 zone for $500? Or 4 zones for $2,500?
That's right.
I'm not really seeing where the value proposition is here. Maybe I'm missing something. Is it because it's smaller?
I guess it's because it's all built into one thing. But
I kind of feel like it should be less than $2,000 if you're going to give me 4 zones.
Right.
Right? I should be getting at least $1 break. It should be $199.9. Right? Right? Is that just me? Anyways.
All right. So that's what it is.
He's looking for suggestions for speakers and subwoofers. He's willing to spend as much as $1,000 per speaker and $1,000 per sub. Well, though he'd be perfectly happy to pay far less if those kinds of prices aren't necessary. He's looking to use 2 or 4 in-ceiling speakers in the kitchen and master bedroom, while the family room would be a 5.1 in-ceiling system. He wants the subwoofers to be on the smaller side with full understanding they won't be pressurizing any of these rooms with deep bass. He isn't looking to flap his pant legs, but he still wants a clean, loud, well-integrated sound to fill each of these rooms. The kitchen and family room are one combined... Wow, this is a really long question. The kitchen and family room are one combined space, and they're also open to the rest of the house.
Mm-hmm.
You want it to be on the smaller side? Okay. All right. And if all the doors are closed, he's dealing with... Am I reading this right?
That's what it is.
30,000 cubic feet. The doors are open.
Don't forget 14-foot ceilings, so that nearly doubles a normal
It could be
room,
as much as 40,000 cubic feet. 40,000 cubic feet.
Yeah, some of the bedroom doors are open or something.
Master bedroom is roughly a 14 by 14 by 14 foot cube. You know, that reminds me of that movie, The Cube.
Yes,
have you seen that movie, The Cube?
That was a good movie. I like that.
I like that movie. The sequels weren't as good, but anyway, It opens to the master bathroom for a total of about 3,500 cubic feet. So what do we suggest? All right, I suggest that you were not going to get nearly enough subwoofer with one subwoofer in each one of these rooms.
It's gonna be tough.
You're gonna, yeah, okay. So let's get into this.
But he
First of all-
understands he's not going to be pressurizing these spaces. He wants there to be bass. He gets that he's not going to pressurize.
He wants clean,
30,000
loud,
cubic
and
feet.
well integrated sound to fill these 3 rooms.
Yeah.
Now, okay, clean we could probably do.
Yes.
Loud we could probably do. Well integrated. If you're talking about with a subwoofer, you're not going to have even bass with just one sub in each room. That's gonna, especially since
Well,
you
when there's
actually,
this much space, though,
it might not even
know?
make that much of a difference.
I mean, it might literally echo.
You know what
in
this
here.
man needs in that big room, the big room? He should do an infinite baffle sub. firing into his attic.
Yeah, he's got
You
his
know what I'm
he's
saying?
got his attic space. Yeah.
I've just put like a couple of 18s up there. You know what I mean? So like, what's 24s if you get them on the, you get them into the between the slat things or whatever. No,
So-
seriously.
Would you mind if I made this really simple in terms of recommending speakers?
You can, yeah, go ahead.
RBH.
God,
Get-
that's what I'm gonna say. You knew I was
Yeah.
gonna say that. Why'd you
Well,
just
of
let
course
me
you're gonna
say
say
it?
it. But I mean, that's
I
the
almost
answer,
cursed on this
right?
podcast. That is the answer. Of course, it's the
That's
answer.
the answer. Yeah. Because they can accept a lot of power. They're very
Yes.
good sounding.
Yes.
And for that 5.1 system in the family room, they have the ones that have the 15-degree angle tilt,
Yeah.
which is helpful for your front 3. I mean, look, we would prefer you not to have your front 3 speakers in a 14-foot high ceiling.
No.
But if that's just the way it's going to be, then at least get the angled ones.
Look
also,
in their in-wall options, please. Just like look at them. Just
Yeah.
look at the in-wall options because you can paint the grills and everything, man. You can make them look nice.
but they also have the fully fire-rated back cans
Yeah,
for all of their stuff. I would absolutely suggest you go for the 8-inch models so that you get maximum power handling and maximum output. So go for the 8-inch models. Now, if you go right to their current sort of top of their line with it, which is either their Visage or their MC series, they're actually kind of the same, but the Visage series has like a no trim sort of like grill. Whereas the RC series is like kind of your regular looking one with actually some trim around the grill. Not a big difference there. But if you go with those, their largest 8-inch, most expensive model is $800 a pair. Now he was saying, oh no, sorry, $800 each. I was wrong about that. So he was saying he's willing to spend as much as $1,000 per speaker. I don't necessarily think you have to go that high, but even if you did, it's still under the budget you were willing
We expect
to pay.
you to put every cent you save on speakers in the subwoofers.
Yes.
Okay. I'm
Yes.
sorry. You have to. If you get the like $500 a pair, we expect $500 times however many pairs you buy to go into subwoofer budget because you're going to need $1,000 sub. Ain't going to touch the space. Not even a
that's-
little bit.
To me that's the easy side because it's like
Yeah.
just go with RBH and ceiling speakers. They have every solution that you need. You'll go through an RBH dealer
Right.
so they can help you sort through the process. Contact RBH directly as well because
Yes.
they will get back to you and they'll help you select the,
And it's
the
not-
right models.
It may be some PR guy, or whatever. That, but let me tell you something about that company. Ain't that big, Haas.
Yeah.
That PR guy sits down with Shane Rich and has lunch like every other day. I don't
Right.
know for sure, but I think that's the way it is. These guys are all real tight. They're basically family out there. So you are not very many steps removed from talking to the dude who invented or designed the speakers.
Right.
So yeah, definitely call them. Get some suggestions.
Yeah.
You
Now, if you want to do an in-wall or in-ceiling subwoofer, they can do that too.
and
Because
I
RBH
would
has.
I would
in-wall and ceiling
why
subs.
not? Why not do that? If you want that clean of a look, you might as well.
Well,
Then
cost
you have
would be the reason because it's $2,500 and up. So
yeah, oh yeah, they ain't cheap, but
Yeah.
you could place more than one, and it just looks like a little vent in your ceiling. That's all.
yeah, it looks like a heating grate basically.
And you can put. I mean, then you could do as many as you wanted, and if you get like not the most expensive RBHs, and you could get a couple more than you think, especially in your bedroom, is going to be real important. You're going to want to put,
Yeah.
14 by 14 by 14. I mean, acoustically not optimal, but
But if you want to stick with a traditional in-room subwoofer, I mean, if you were going to go with SVS, the nice thing we've always said about SVS is you probably will have that volume dial as high as it will
Yeah.
go, but it still won't bottom itself out. They're to keep. I mean, I could point you to the SB16 Ultra, the sealed box 16 Ultra, although I wouldn't exactly call that small, and it's way above the price you wanted to
Right,
pay.
right.
But the SB13 Ultra wouldn't be a terrible choice, but that's still a 17.5-inch cube, so it's not small. So I'm like, well, if you're willing to go for a 17.5-inch cube, how about an 18-inch cube? Because that ain't that much bigger. In which case, you could look at Power Sound Audio, right? They've got their sealed 15-inch ones, which are $1,000 and under. So you can get a 15-inch sealed, about an 18-inch cube. Power Sound Audio would be a good choice here. HSU also has their ULS 15 Mark II. I'd probably lean Power Sound Audio in this case because you just want raw output.
Yeah.
Rhythmic has their F15 HP and their E15 as well, but again, I'd still lean Power Sound Audio here. So, if you want traditional in-room subs, I'd probably go Power Sound Audio in this case. That's your best bang for buck. But it's still going to be it's not small. It's a 1.5 cube.
Do they? What's the biggest? The Ultra 13. PC Ultra 13.
PC 13 Ultra, the cylinder.
I would at least take.
That's still way more expensive.
I know, but I would look at the cylinder subs from SVS
Possibly.
as well, just because they tend to take people in much different. Some people look at them and hate them. Some people look at them and go, I could put a plant on that.
That's
right? And it becomes
tuck it in a corner and put like one of those Japanese folding curtain things over, like
or
all kinds of stuff you can do.
Yeah. It's a lot less floor space and you get a little bit more bang for your buck. So,
but I did want to last thing I want to touch on, because I think that covers speakers and subwoofers. Those are all going to be good options.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about his amplification, because he was saying he wants to put all of this whole house audio stuff in one centralized closet. So it's not as though he needs a separate Hios amp in each room individually. It's all going to go in one closet. So my suggestion would be, since the RBH speakers can absorb 150 watts all day, right? That's the max power. So the Hios amp only outputs 70 watts per channel. The Hios Drive is only 60 watts per channel. I'm thinking, get yourself a nice big beefy amp. So even if you want to do 4 speakers in a room, you could wire them in parallel to something like a Monoprice Monolith amplifier, which is 200 watts per channel, can absolutely drive 4 ohms all day long. And they have their 7-channel amp, so that could power your front 3 speakers out of your theater, and it could power your kitchen. Even if it's 4 speakers, you just wire them in parallel, and it could power your bedroom. Even if it's 4 speakers, wire them in parallel, right? So you could do all that from one 7-channel amp. $1,500 retail. They're actually selling B stock of them right now for $1,300, right? So you combine that with, instead of the Hios amp, you go for the Hios Link, because the Hios Link is basically just the Hios amp minus the amp part.
Amplifiers.
And then those are $350 each, right?
Right.
So you get 3 of those and the Monoprice Monolith amplifier. That's cheaper than the Hios Drive, and you have way more power. So that's what I would do here.
Yeah. I guess the only other speaker manufacturer that was coming to my mind was possibly KEF.
Yes.
For in-ceiling
I thought
speakers.
That too.
I was trying to think of anybody else that really... I just don't know. I can't come... Off the top of my head,
those for really good sounding in-ceiling speakers, those are my go-tos.
Yeah.
Absolutely. KEF and RBH. But here, because RBH has every solution, I mean, it's not that KEF doesn't, but for the angled one, the only angled ones they have are like motorized, and they're way more expensive, and it's unnecessary.
Yeah.
So like, just go RBH. It's going to work. It's going to be great.
He also says, for the formal living room, bathrooms, and maybe some of the other rooms in the house, he doesn't want poor quality, but none of those rooms are as critical as the kitchen, family room, and master bedroom. He just wants pleasant background music for all these other spaces. There are no plans for subwoofers, just decent in-ceiling speakers. Tried to get through. I was so close. I was trying to power through.
Feel it coming on.
I apologize. I am sorry, but I was like, I can do it. I can make it. No. Just decent in-ceiling speakers. What would we suggest? 4 words. And I was done. And then I could sneeze. And we could have cut it out of the podcast, but now it's in there forever. I stick with RBH, dude. You just get the cheaper ones.
Yeah, get their, what they call their architectural series, like their A600s. Absolutely fine for this purpose.
Yeah.
And since you're going to be talking to an RBH dealer anyway, just get it all in one big bundle.
Yeah, that's exactly what I would do. And I would highly recommend you go ahead and listen to a lot of these speakers too. You know, there's no reason not to. You're going to be at a dealer. They're going to have them installed someplace. You're going to be able to hear them. You get an idea of what you're going to get.
Now, same thing here. If you wanted a separate Hios connection for each of these other rooms.
Yeah.
I would still stick with HEOS Links, and then I would get a distribution amp.
Right.
Because again, you want it all centrally located. So instead of individual HEOS devices, each of them with their own amp built in, I just get a distribution amp. That way, like let's say you go, you know what? I don't need to have the ability to put individual music in every single bathroom. If I'm going to have background music going, they're all going to share one source.
We see that's
I'm not
what I
gonna,
think too.
right?
I think that this is a little bit. I mean, yeah, it's cool to have total control, but think about it realistically.
Yeah.
Is there ever going to be a time where you're listening to music in the kitchen where you're not going to be listening to it in the living room or in the bathrooms or in the whatever? Like, when is that going to happen? You're going to have a party and you're going to want to have music everywhere. Yes, you might want to have different volume controls in different room. Okay, I can understand that. But the reality is, and a distribution app is perfect for these sorts of things, where you can just have one or two sources plugged into them, and then decide where you're going to which rooms or which outputs you're sending it to, and it's perfect for this application.
Yeah, so there's a couple of great choices there. Over at Parts Express, there are the Dayton distribution amps. Those give you 12 channels of amplification, so that can be 6 stereo zones. And they give you the ability, if you want individual control for each one of those stereo zones, you can do it, or you can share a source between any number of them. So very convenient. You're looking at between $500 and $700 for that, depending on how many watts per channel you want, but that's the price range. Emotiva also has a new distribution amp. It has 8 channels, so that would be 4 stereo zones, also $500, and similar deal. You can have individual plugs for each of those stereo zones or share sources between them. So a couple of good options that aren't crazy expensive, and since it's all going to be centrally located, that's the way I would go, rather than using any of the HEOS ones that include amplifiers on their own, because it's so much more cost effective. That's all.
Yeah. Those HEOS, no offense, those HEOS amps don't seem all that.
Well, where it makes sense is I want a device in my room that I can walk over and touch, right? Then a distribution amp doesn't make sense. So that it's nice to have the option of the HEOS amp. But in this case, I would go HEOS Links all the way, and distribution amps. Big beefy amp for the 3 zones that you really care about, and then distribution amps for all the other ones.
I'm wondering, is this 800? Is it A800? That's a multi-zone amplifier from Emotiva. This is a distribution.
That's right. It is, yeah.
You can change the sources because it looks like it has a source per input.
It does have a maybe I was wrong. I thought it had a shared source.
There is a shared source here. It looks
just
like.
One.
Yeah, but there's just one.
Okay. The Dayton ones give you 2 shared, so you can switch between 2 shared sources. So the Dayton's giving you a bit more for either the same or a little bit more money, depending on how many watts per channel you want. So yeah, the Parts Express Dayton distribution amps be very handy for those other rooms where you're not as critical about the sound, but you still want it to sound good.
I look into that Emotiva a little bit more to see exactly how that works, because I'm not sure it does exactly what you want it to do. So check that out though, because it's going to be a good amp at the very least.
That's right.
Acon, I'm going with Acon. Acon.
I would have said Akun, but I don't know.
Akun? I don't know. Anyways, this person is from Indonesia, and they have a question for us. Akun, I really need somebody to tell me how to pronounce this correctly.
Some phonetics.
Has an Oppo BDP 103 Blu-ray player and a JVC X700R projector. Nice. He is planning to buy the Oppo UDP 203 Ultra HD Blu-ray player. Good.
Okay.
He is well aware that his JVC X700R does not have HDCP 2.2 or HDR support, but he isn't actually too concerned about the video side of things. The main reason he wants to start using Ultra Blu-rays is because quite a few Ultra HD Blu-rays include immersive audio like Atmos or DTS:X, when the same movie on Blu-ray does not.
True.
So, will there be any problem showing the HDR Ultra HD Blu-rays on his non-HDR projector with the Oppo 203 convert HDR to SDR?
Yes, it will.
Yeah.
So essentially, there is no problem.
No,
you can play an Ultra HD Blu-ray on your non-HDR projector. That will absolutely work coming out of the Oppo.
So they JVC says it can accept a 4K resolution signal, but its HDMI ports are, of course, HDMI 1.4, and again, no HDCP 2.2. So what resolution should you set the Oppo 203 player to output? Is there any way to get the 4K resolution from the Ultra HD Blu-ray movies from the Oppo to his JVC? And I'm pretty sure the answer to that question is no, you cannot get it. So.
No, because to get the 4K resolution, you do need to have HDCP 2.2 support.
So what the JVC is saying is that if you have a 4K signal that you can send through HDMI, we will take it and we can,
yeah, that'd be from something like your own camcorder, say,
or even like an upconverting
or an upconverting Blu-ray player. That's
right. I've even reviewed those before, which can output 4K. They take 1080p and upconvert it to 4K and send it out,
which the projector does itself anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No. So yeah, unfortunately, it will not accept the 4K out of Ultra HD Blu-ray because of copy protection. That's what it comes down to.
That's right. It is the copy protection. But you were saying you're already watching regular Blu-rays. Your JVC, its native resolution is actually still 1080p. It's wobbling that panel to give you wobble K, to give you pseudo 4K resolution. So you're really not losing much. You actually do still get some benefit. The image still does have more vibrant colors. It still does have, it's starting from a higher resolution. So you actually don't need to set the resolution output of the Oppo Ultra HD Blu-ray player to anything in particular. You can leave it at auto.
Yeah.
It will detect that you have connected a non-HDCP 2.2 display,
right,
and it will just downscale and remove the HDR. It will do all of that, but you can still play the Ultra HD Blu-ray disc. So this will work. You won't be getting 4K resolution out of the Oppo, but you weren't anyway, so.
And you will get the immersive audio. So there you go.
You'll get the immersive audio. That's right.
Jonathan. This is a follow-up from last week. Jonathan was confused by our answer regarding 7-channel stereo listening mode versus multi-channel stereo listening mode. According to the description in his Denon manual, multi-channel stereo listening mode seems like it takes whatever is playing and plays it through all available speakers. Is that not the case? It does. According to what we talked about last week, if I was remembering what Rob said correctly.
Right, it makes sound come out of all of the speakers.
What you wanted... What 7-channel stereo does is it makes whatever was coming out of the left speakers come out of all the speakers on the left.
Right.
And whatever comes out of the right speakers coming out of all the speakers on the right.
Right.
What this
just
does,
straight duplication.
What this does is it takes what's left and right and kind of leaves that front stereo image, but then expands it around a little bit behind you to the sides.
It is a DSP listening mode.
Right.
So actually, we were hoping originally that multi-channel stereo listening mode did the straight duplication thing, because the reason we found out that multi-channel stereo is not the same as the old 7-channel stereo is because in my whole crazy thing of playing bass sweeps through every speaker individually one at a time to figure out the very best possible crossover frequency, one of the tricks was you just physically unplug all but one speaker, put it into 7-channel stereo listening mode, play your bass sweep, and now it'll come out of that speaker perfectly duplicated. Well, somebody tried that with the multi-channel stereo listening mode, and they're like, that ain't the same bass sweep. Like, this thing has some reverb added to it.
Right.
Its frequency response has been changed a little bit. So, unfortunately, they're doing some digital signal processing. Yes, sound is coming out of all of your speakers, but it is slightly processed sound. So, I apologize. I forget who was asking last week about the 7-channel stereo, but they were hoping for the straight duplication. Yamaha still does that. Denon and Marantz don't. So that was that.
So Jonathan also finished reading recently a novella set in Beijing. It's called The Invisibility Cloak, and the protagonist is someone who builds an audio amplifiers and installs audiophile gear in China. So are there any AV Rant listeners in China? I don't know that I ever remember hearing about anybody.
I don't recall someone explicitly saying they were in
China. I know
China.
we've got Japan.
Oh, yes.
Scott was from Japan. I mean, he's still from Japan as far as I know. Anyways, and is the lust for Nordist cables and vinyl really as prevalent in China as this novella makes them out to be? Didn't read the novella, so I don't know what the novella, but I'm sure there is a community of audiophiles in China. Positive.
Well, I'm certain that a love for vinyl. I mean, that's worldwide.
Yeah.
There are the people who just love vinyl, so that's fine. I'm sure that's there. The Nordost cables in particular, I mean, they are lusted after by people for whatever reason. It wouldn't shock me that I'm certain there is a group in China
Right.
of people who really, really want Nordost cables. I wouldn't doubt that for a second. There are many, many people in China. It would be strange if there wasn't a group after any particular brand, to be honest.
Absolutely. I mean, there's going to be other file groups there. I mean,
Yes.
it's just, I mean, any place you've got people with money, and China certainly has that, you're going to find people who are looking to differentiate themselves from the other people that have money. And how they do that? They get some hobby that's expensive. And believe me, audio can be really super expensive. So,
Hey, we talked about some speakers from Jonathan last week at that
Yep.
Xpona show. Hey, you want to spend $300,000 on a pair of speakers? There they are.
that is not even nearly close to the most expensive speakers I've ever seen, too.
Well, of course, they won't sound very good unless you also have $300,000 cables, right?
Cable elevators. I want cable elevators like the porcelain ones that are on the audio, the power poles.
Yeah.
Those are cool. Okay, they don't do anything, but they are
In your
so
home, no.
cool. I mean, just looking at them, it's like, what is that? I'm like, oh well, I can't let my cable
Porcelain.
touch the ground.
They're not even very expensive.
I
You
know.
that because the utility company put them up there. So
Yeah.
if they cost thousands of dollars each,
probably
they
20
wouldn't be
cents a
putting
pop.
them up there, would they? It's porcelain.
Yeah. Ty. So first of all, Ty wanted to apologize for the confusion regarding his speaker, his theater's layout. It is indeed 19 feet long and 12 feet wide. So we were talking about that last week because we were a little
Yes.
confused. He's planning on having 2 rows of seats, only 2 recliners each, but he initially thought he'd prefer the back row to be his primary row. Thanks to our discussion, he now realizes the back row will be too close to the back wall to properly enjoy a 7.2.4 setup. That's right, because he was going to be like 2 feet off the back row. I was like,
That's what he was saying. Yeah.
that's not going to work. So now he can either plan to move those seats forward or make his front row his primary seat. So he says, thanks, you're welcome. Make your front row your primary seat.
I would in this setup because it looks like he's going to go for some beanbag chairs in front of the front row and then have a front row and a back row. Now, I'm fine with the back row still being 2 feet away from the back wall and having slightly compromised sound.
Yeah, that's fine.
If your primary row where you sit most of the time is that front row, that all works out. It also makes the screen size thing easier to deal with, in my opinion. So
Yeah.
I would sit in your front row.
So his new question is whether there are any pitfalls to mounting his projector on the back wall instead of on the ceiling, and building a custom hush box around that rear shelf mount. He's strongly leaning towards an Epson 5040 UB projector. Any pitfalls to mounting his projector on the back wall instead of on the ceiling? The pitfalls would be whether or not you can
Get the screen
get
size.
the screen
you want.
size you want.
Yeah.
That's
Now-
where it comes down to.
Again, because the Epson that he's looking at has such a long zoom range. Now, it has some depth, so his room is 19 feet long, but the lens is going to be, I would say, at most 18 feet from the screen.
Right.
So you plug that into the projector calculator over at Projector Central, and you can have as small as about an 85-inch diagonal screen all the way up to, it was some crazy size that probably wouldn't even fit in his room anymore. So I'm assuming you're not going to have a screen smaller than 85 inches in this
Do
setup.
not have a screen smaller than 85 inches in this setup.
So it should be fine. Now, we should point out there are some instances when if you were looking at a projector that doesn't have the incredibly huge zoom range available that this Epson does, then that could be a concern because you might not be able to get the screen size you want if you're dealing with a low-cost projector that only has a 1.2 times zoom range or something like that. Then you have to be very careful. But in this case, should be absolutely fine. Now the Hushbox thing, we don't hear about Hushboxes as much anymore. They're not as common.
We don't. So he's thinking about building this hush box. So those you don't know, this is the idea that you have a kind of a sealed box which is open to something to give it some air ventilation, because if not, your projector will burn up in there.
A lot of people use like large diameter PC fans,
Yeah.
so that they're very very silent, but at least they still move the air in and out of that box.
Right. And then this keeps the noise from the projector away from your ears.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you, I don't really think that you're going to need one.
I know. The 5040 is quite a quiet projector.
You're not going to, especially if you're sitting in that second row and you put that projector on the back wall, you're going to be like 6 feet away, 8 feet away, something like
Now,
that.
maybe in the back of his mind, he's thinking he is still going to sit in the back row. Now, if you were only 2 feet off the back wall, in the back row, the projector on a shelf right behind you, it's not going to be silent. Like,
You're
you
not
will
gonna
hear the fan.
I know. You're gonna hear it when you start up the thing. The movie's gonna start, and you're gonna forget about that thing.
Yeah.
Yes, it will occasionally. I would highly recommend living with it first
Try it, yeah.
before you go through
committing
trouble.
to building the hush box, yeah.
But yeah, I would just put on that back shelf. I build a shelf back there or something like that. Mount it to the back wall. Go with that. Live with it for a little while, and then say to yourself, okay, it's going to take me this amount of money, this amount of time, this whatever aggravation to build this hush box. Is it worth it? And then that so you'll be able to answer that question at that
Yeah.
point.
Now, I would say on that rear shelf, try to put it fairly high. Like, even though it's a shelf on the back, try to put it fairly high, because again, the 5040 UB, tons of lens shift range, so not going to be a problem. But that way, if you're sitting in the front row and you stand up, you still might block the light path a little bit, but it'll be less so. You know, it won't be the gigantic shadow blocking the entire image. So that type of thing. So try to get up high. If you are going to end up building the hush box, the main concern is the glass. Because if you're going to have a sealed box, then the light still needs to get out somehow, so you have to have glass. Now, what most people who build hush boxes, they go to Edmund Optics for Edmund optical glass. You're going to spend a not insignificant amount, but it's worth it, because what you don't want is for that glass to act as a mirror whatsoever. You don't want any of the light reflecting off the inside of that glass and going back into the projector's lens. That destroys your contrast. So you want very, very clear glass with very, very little reflection. It's worth, because you only need a window. The window only needs to be big enough for the projection image to come out of it. That's all you need.
Right.
And the only other consideration is how you're going to control the projector. The easiest is a physical IR wire, right?
Yeah.
That's by far the easiest, or an IR extender that you can put directly, one of the little flashers that you literally stick onto the IR receiver. Because, if it's in a box, it's not going to be able to see the IR commands. So those are the things to think about, but they're absolutely all things you can overcome.
Right. All right, Adam. So during the warmer months, Adam uses his garage as his home theater. Where does he live? He must live someplace very cold. Is that what I'm getting from this?
Car parked outside when it's warmer, so then he puts a theater in his garage.
Oh, okay. He has an Epson 5040 UB projector. I swear these things come in waves. And a surround sound system powered by a Denon AVR X5200W. The X5200W does not have HDCP 2.2, so he's been using an HG Fury Integral. And I'm trying to open that, and the site cannot be reached. So I can see what the heck he's talking about.
Okay.
That link is not working.
Huh. They must be updating their website as we speak.
This will let him send the HDCP 2.2 video to his projector, while the HG Fury's second HDMI output sends an HDCP 1.4 signal to his receiver. During the colder months, the garage goes back to being a garage. So he brings the Epson into his basement setup, where he uses a Sonos player for the audio. This Sonos Play Bar, I missaid that the first time, but anyway, it's called the Sonos Play Bar, can only accept an optical audio cable, so he uses the HG Fury to extract the audio from his HDMI sources. The problem is that the HG Fury only has 2 HDMI input, and he's been using it as a switch for his Philips Ultra HD Blu-ray player and his Roku Premiere Plus, since those were his first two 4K sources. But now he wants to use more HDMI sources. He doesn't want to have to plug and unplug devices into his HG Fury, or be forced to make do with his older HDMI switch that does not support 4K and HDCP 2.2. So they have 4K HDCP 2.2 HDMI switches with 4 or 5 inputs that cost less than $100. If the switch also has audio extraction to optical, he wouldn't even need to use HG Fury with the Sonos Play Bar setup, so that'd be beneficial if it's available.
Yeah, so I wanted to address the HD Fury thing first, because the Denon AVR X5200W was that really weird year where Onkyo decided to have HDCP 2.2 support in their Onkyo and Integra.
Right.
They had HDCP 2.2 support that year, but they were limited to 10.2 gigabits per second. on their HDMI connections. Meanwhile, Denon and Marantz supported 18 gigabits per second bandwidth on their HDMI connections,
Right.
but they didn't support HDCP 2.2 that year.
Right.
So it was this weird situation. That was the year of those projectors. So the HD Fury has 2 HDMI inputs and 2 HDMI outputs. One of those HDMI outputs can be HDCP, whatever you want it to be. It's programmable, but it can do 2.2. And the second HDMI output is HDCP 1.4.
Okay.
So he was describing in his email, I didn't put it in this rundown, but he was describing that he was using an HDMI audio for his Ultra HD Blu-ray player, but for some reason he was using optical audio for his Roku Premiere Plus. And now he's going to have more HDMI sources, right?
Right.
So I was looking at that. I go, well, you should be able to, as long as you have an HDMI switch,
Right.
switch between whatever HDMI source you want.
Right.
That HDMI switch is going to have one output, right?
Right.
You plug that one output into your HD Fury,
Yes.
and then the HD Fury can split that HDMI signal, keep the HDCP 2.2 and 4K resolution and all that going to your projector,
Right.
and then output an HDCP 1.4 version of that is basically just there for audio only to your
Receiver.
X5200W receiver. There should be no need for an optical audio connection when you're using your Denon receiver. That should not be necessary.
Yeah, I can't understand why it would be. Yeah.
Right. Now, for the Sonos Playbar, opposite situation. It only has one optical audio input. That's all the Sonos Playbar has.
Convenient.
But same thing. You could plug all of your HDMI sources into an HDMI switch. The one output from that HDMI switch goes into your HD Fury, and the HD Fury can extract the HDMI audio and send it out of its optical audio output. So the connection path should be, you should be able to just take your HDMI switch and your HD Fury and bring it to your garage, plug in all your sources, plug 2 HDMI cables into the HD Fury
Right.
in your garage, and then bring your HD Fury and the HDMI switch into your basement setup and plug an optical audio cable instead of the second HDMI cable that's just there for audio. That should work. That's the setup that I'm proposing, and there is a 5-in, 1-out HDCP 2.2 18 gigabit per second switch from Sewell for $65.
That's the solution.
So that's their switch deck.
Okay.
So that's under $100.
It is.
It itself does not have optical audio extraction, but you still have the HD Fury. So
You're gonna the
it's not
HD
like
Fury
we're
is,
asking you to spend more money.
yeah. Unfortunately, this splitting out of the audio, that's where, and what the HD Fury is doing, that's the
Yeah.
expensive bit. So the switches
Yeah.
are not that expensive,
That's right.
but the
Well,
expensive
it's actually
bit is
it's surprisingly hard to find an HDMI switch that has 18 gigabits per second bandwidth. That actually is, like, if you go to Monoprice, they don't have any. They're all 10.2. Even the ones that support HDCP 2.2, they're still 10.2 gigabits per second, except for the ones that do it via an optical connection or an Ethernet or something like that. But Sewell, they have one, $65, 5-in, 1-out, 18 gigabits, HDCP 2.2. So you take the one output from that, plug it into your HD Fury, and then you can do whatever you need to do. You can either split the audio out via HDMI with HDCP 1.4 instead, so that it works through the receiver, or you can split out the optical audio from your HD Fury. So that's the solution. Switch Deck 4K HDMI 2.0 switch by Sewell. If you want to search it before we get the link posted at avrant.com, but we will post the link, avrant.com.
There you go. Nick. So, according to Nick, we've said several times that you can find not too expensive Sony headphones in just about every recording studio. So even if you can't afford $2,000 headphones, wouldn't using those Sonys actually give you better assurance that you're hearing things the way they were mastered and intended to be heard? That's a very good point. But let me counter that with something here, and that's this. When they are mastering audio, they want to know how. First of all, they want to master it so that it's as best as it possibly can be, but they also need to know how it's going to sound on a lot of people's
Yes.
systems.
Many different playback systems.
So what they do is they get they'll become a speaker or a headphone out there that is representative to them of what most people's systems sound like. And that system, while not necessarily as accurate and not necessarily as good, is very representative. So they're like, okay, I'm mastering this with these, great headphones and, fantastic speakers or whatever. Now I'm going to listen to it on this other system to see how it sounds when it's in somebody's house. Now I'm going to listen to it on these speakers, which is what it sounds like when it's in somebody's car. Now I'm going to listen on these headphones, which is what, most people are buying these days, just so they know what it sounds like and they can make small adjustments if they need to. Does that mean that you want to buy all those speakers? No. No. They are certainly not intending that. They just want to make sure that the differences, the changes that they're making are either audible or don't distract from the overall quality because of inaccuracies within the typical system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, mastering engineers are obsessed with what they call translatability.
Yeah.
Which is the ability to listen to what they are mastering on multiple different playback systems and still get what they deem to be the most important parts of that to come across. So, like, every recording studio also has a pair of Yamaha NS10 speakers, which are horrible speakers.
Not good.
But, like, on purpose.
Yeah.
Like, they're meant to, like, represent a clock radio, essentially. And they still want to be able to recognize their song and hear the most important parts on those. Does that mean you should go out and buy Yamaha NS10s? No! They're horrible. Yeah. But they're purposely horrible. Now, that's not
Yamaha,
a good analogy.
I was going to say, I don't think at Yamaha that they were purposely horrible. But
they were, and everybody bought them. Because they're
still
a great
selling them today.
representation of horrible speakers. Now, that's a bad analogy to make for the Sony, because the Sonys aren't bad headphones. And we're talking about the 7506s most of the time.
Yeah.
I'm not actually sure how much mastering goes on using those headphones. When I say they're in every recording studio, I'm talking about the recording and mixing phase.
Right.
So if you watch behind the scenes videos, you'll see a ton of voiceover artists or singers as well wearing Sony headphones on their ear. They're wearing those 7506s while they're in the vocal booth. So that's what I mean, that they're ubiquitous. You find them almost there because they're very durable and they're very reliable, and they have a pretty darn neutral, even sound. So they're very inoffensive, would be a great way to put them. Now, if you bought some and you listen to them, I do think they're great. But does that mean they're the pinnacle of what the sound can be? No. Right. So that's the distinction.
He says on a recent Home Theater Geeks episode, they were talking about how headphones are all over the place in terms of frequency response. With so much variation, what are our thoughts on trying to find an accurate headphone sound? I think it's a really good idea. That's what I think an accurate headphone sound is. Now, does that make this easy? No. Okay. The headphone market right now is incredibly competitive.
Yes.
And it is incredibly saturated. It is so very hard to get yourself noticed. It is so hard. If you're not Beats by Dr. Dre, which people will buy just because it's a status symbol, then you really have to do something different to stand out. What's going to be that difference? Is it style? Maybe. Mm-hmm. Is it sound? Probably not, but maybe. But it's got to be something. So a lot of times, this idea that there's so much variation out there is because either there's a lot of people not really concentrating on how things sound, more concentrating on how things look, so that they can get, more people to buy them based on that alone. But there's also a lot of people out there who are designing headphones, trying to give them as much boom and sizzle as possible, just so when you listen to them for the first couple seconds, you're like, wow, these are really loud. These.
I'm hearing details I've never heard before.
Oh,
that must
so
be good.
much bass. It was rattling my teeth.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. So, but accurate sound in the end will win the day. I mean, I've got inaccurate headphones that I listen to all the time, and when I'm listening to nothing but them, I think they sound pretty good. And then when I switch to something better, I'm like, oh, that's right. That's right. That's how that's supposed to sound. I remember now. But when I'm mowing the lawn and listening to Pandora, who cares what headphones I'm using? If anything, God help me if I'm listening to something that's got a good hi end and you're listening to Pandora, because every hi-hat sound just sounds like tss,
Yeah.
tss. Like, what is that sound? Is that a hi-hat? Tss. Like, no. Is it air coming out of a balloon? Tss. No, not sure what that is. So right now we said it, according to our listener here, so we said it's not a bad time to buy a display. But when it comes to HDR projectors, is that really true? He's read reviews of HDR Ultra HD Blu-ray movies comparing the viewing experience on an HDR OLED versus an HDR projector, and from these descriptions, those two experiences are widely different. So be wise to wait when it comes to HDR projectors. I would wait because they're super duper expensive right now. It's a pretty good time to buy. Flat panels right now are insanely cheap compared to previous years. Especially
even then, if you want the very best performance, you're going to be paying a fair amount for some of the flagship models. So those will come down in price. There's no question. The level of performance of, say, a Sony X930E, right, which is a very nice looking HDR flat panel right now. Well, that level of performance will come down in price. Yeah. Right now you're paying for it. So there's no, if you can wait, it's not going to hurt you to wait. But like the current JVCs that are out there right now, they're handling everything pretty darn well, and they're ready for HLG as well. So that's like the 570, 770, 970 models. But yeah, they're not exactly cheap. Epson's 5040 UB, $2,700, probably about the most affordable, but doesn't handle 4K 60 hertz. Isn't necessarily whether it'll handle HLG or not, still up in the air, but Epson's going to replace that with something, this coming November. So not a terrible idea to wait on that if you can. But if you got a 5040 UB, I'd say you're getting a very nice projector, especially for the money.
Yeah.
So, yeah. HDR is a different experience on a projector because it's a much bigger screen. So when you're talking about candela per square meter, which is what a nit means. A nit is a candela per square meter. You have many more square meters in a projector screen, which means that overall that number is going to be smaller. Yeah. So the experience of watching HDR on a flat panel is always going to be different from a projector. The projector is always going to look dimmer. But what was described in the one link that he sent actually sounds a heck of a lot like someone who bought one of the JVC projectors, like say a 550 or a 750 or a 950, and didn't know about the HDR calibration settings that JVC posted on their website. Right. Because what they described was everything looking too dark and shadow detail being lost, which is exactly what happens if you don't input the correct settings. That JVC admits they basically made a mistake in their out-of-the-box settings for HDR with those models from a year and a half ago. They've corrected that in the new 570, 770 et al. So that's what that sounded like to me. It sounded like incorrect settings.
There you go. So how will projectors handle Dolby Vision? If you're primarily going to use an HDR projector, are Ultra HD Blu-rays with Dolby Vision just a waste of money? Could Dolby eventually certify Dolby Vision projectors, making it possible to enter all the variables, screen size, ambient light, throw distance, etc., so that projector could calculate the correct tone mapping? I don't know.
So, the answer right now is projectors just don't handle Dolby Vision. Now, if you're saying, is it a waste to buy an Ultra HD Blu-ray that has Dolby Vision? Well, no, because it still has HDR10 as well.
Right.
And it's not like you have a choice. It's not like they charge you extra for the Dolby Vision version and you could opt to pay $2
less. If they thought they could get away
with
it, they would. But exactly. they haven't yet.
If you're buying Despicable Me, there's the one Ultra HD version and it has both HDR10 and Dolby Vision. So when you play it on your projector, you get HDR10. If you play it on a Vizio or an LG OLED, you get Dolby Vision, right? So that's that situation. So it's not like you're missing out. I don't know if Dolby Vision's ever going to come to projectors. It is too many variables. What he's proposing is an interesting idea. He even said in his email it's probably going to be something that only a professional calibrator would have access to, and I agree with that because that's too many variables for them to ever put it in the hands of end users and expect them to get all of that correct. I suppose, they have Dolby Vision cinemas. That's their own cinema where they controlled every aspect of the thing, including the projector. So you get Dolby Vision in a cinema that way. But you'll notice, you don't have Dolby Vision in anything other than a Dolby Vision cinema.
Yeah, right.
It's only they don't let anybody else, not even IMAX gets to do it, right? So I think it's very unlikely that Dolby Vision will come to projectors. That's my prediction.
Infinite Gary. So the Oppo UDP-203's manual uses some interesting language. For example, they write that to ensure the best possible video and audio quality, you should feed the audio and video separately using the dual HDMI outputs of the player. They also write that you can take advantage of Oppo Player's advanced digital to analog converter by using the 7.1 analog audio connections. So these words make it sound like feeding a single HDMI cable to your AV receiver and then outputting from the AV receiver to your display is the worst connection path. Is that their intent? No, that's not really their intent. What's their intent is now this is the upgrade, the one with the upgraded audio section, right?
No, this is the 203, which is the Ultra HD Blu-ray player. Then the 205 has the upgraded analog audio section.
So, I mean, it's not really their intent here. I mean, you can do the audio decoding at your player, or you can do the audio decoding at your receiver, and they know that their audio decoding in their player is very good.
Sure.
So they're saying, do it that way. Why are they telling you to use two different HDMI outputs? I don't know.
Well, to me, that's a little bit of covering your bases, because people who listen to this podcast, myself and Tom, we might know that I have an AV receiver that is not HDCP 2.2 compatible, but it can decode Dolby True HD and DTS HD Master Audio. So I know that if I use the two HDMI connections, I can get the best quality audio, and then I can send HDCP 2.2 with 4K resolution and HDR and everything separately to my display. I might know that, but a ton of people aren't going to know those details that intimately. So Oppo's kind of covering their bases here, saying if you use the two HDMI outputs, you send audio straight to your AV receiver, you send video straight to your display, even if you don't know the capabilities of your display and your AV receiver,
if you just send them to auto, you'll get the best of what they can accept. Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas if you know that your AV receiver has 18 gigabits of bandwidth, has HDCP 2.2, can pass through HDR10, can pass through Dolby Vision, if you know all those details, then you only need one HDMI cable. But Oppo's going, how many of our customers know all of those details, or can we tell them a connection path that is going to work every time,
right,
whether they know those details or not? That's my take on that.
Yeah. He asks, what happens to Atmos if you use the 7.1 analog audio connections? You lose
get it
completely. That's the whole thing. You have to send it digitally so that it can be decoded at the receiver, so the metadata can be read. If you send the 7.1 analog outputs, it's gone.
It's the same as if let's say you have an AV receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say it's a 7.1 AV receiver.
Okay.
And you're playing a disc that has Atmos on it. Well, it's a 7.1 AV receiver that doesn't have Atmos, but it will still decode the Dolby True HD. The Atmos is a layer on top of a Dolby True HD 7.1 base layer. So the 7.1 Dolby True HD base layer is getting decoded, in this case, inside the Oppo, and then sent out as 7.1 analog audio. There's no Atmos information in there. That is gone. So it's the same as decoding the Dolby True HD base layer, or in the case of DTS-X, it's the same as decoding the DTS HD base layer that's underneath. So you lose the immersive audio.
Yeah. He asks, can you still use Odyssey when using 7.1 analog audio inputs?
Nope.
I don't understand that answer, to be honest with you, because when it sets itself as multi-channel in, because you're doing the decoding, you're saying that Odyssey is not being applied to that?
If you're using the 7.1 analog inputs, there is no analog to digital conversion.
Oh, right. Okay, I'm thinking, yes.
So in order to use Odyssey, you would have to take the 7.1 analog audio coming out of the Oppo, you would have to convert that inside the AV receiver to digital, do all your bass management, Odyssey, if you want you to use your tone controls, any of that stuff, then you would have to convert it back to analog again inside the AV receiver and then amplify it, which is a crazy thing to do. So what they say is if you're using the 7.1 analog audio, we're assuming you did all the bass management, any EQ that you wanted to do outside of the AV receiver,
Yeah.
and we're going to leave it alone. Essentially, it's just amplifying the signal. That's all it's doing to that. So they even say it talks about Odyssey, and there's a little footnote that says Odyssey cannot be set when the input mode is 7.1 channel in, which refers to the analog 7.1.
Now, this is different because that's just where I got confused. This is different than when you have a source that is decoding Dolby Digital or whatever it is for you and then sending
and
it out.
outputting it via HDMI.
As long
PCM.
as it's going out digitally, it is still coming in as a digital signal. Therefore, bass
Right.
management and Odyssey and everything can be applied. So it'll say, unlike my receiver, it says multi-channel input,
Multi-channel in, that's right.
which is not analog. It's still digital. And then
It's not
all this stuff.
7.1 analog in. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so just so there's no confusion. Lastly, Gary says when he plays 2-channel, he's found that in order to get his subwoofer to play, he has to send it to LFE plus mains. For movies... Really? Oh, whatever. For movies, he has his subwoofer output set to LFE, and it seems to work just fine. But switching back and forth is a hassle, so if he leaves the subwoofer setting on LFE plus mains, would it do anything bad? What, if anything, would be different? So
There's a few reasons why he might be having to set it to LFE plus mains to get his subwoofer to play when he's listening to only
is
two
it
channels.
analog coming in? Is that because
No, even that shouldn't matter if it's just 2-channel analog, because that will get digitized. No, the most obvious one would be, are your front, left, and right speakers set too large? Because if they're set too large, this is what will happen.
right?
Now, if that isn't the case and they're set to small, are you using the direct listening mode? Because
That
if
would
you're
make
using the
sense.
direct listening mode, this will happen.
Yeah.
If you're not using the direct listening mode,
Or pure
let me
direct.
think, is there
Might be
any?
pure direct, right?
Or pure direct, right? If you're not using any, no. If you're listening, the other one is, he has a Marantz AV receiver. It has that separate 2-channel speaker setting menu, and that. So let's say that when you're listening to surround sound, any of the surround sound listening modes, it set all your speakers to small. It set your subwoofer to LFE, and everything's working fine. They give you the option of a separate 2-channel only
Right.
settings, which activates when you use stereo, direct, or pure direct. And there you could have your front, left, right set to large, for all we know. Even though for surround sound they're set to small, they give you the option of setting it separately. So you need to check the settings, make sure that your front, left, right speakers are always set to small, whether it's surround sound or 2-channel stereo.
Right.
If they're set to small, and you use the stereo listening mode, and your subwoofer is set to LFE, then it should all work.
Yeah.
The point the point of the LFE plus mains is when your front, left, right speakers are set to large, so they're playing the full range signal from 20 hertz to 20
Right.
kilohertz, and you also want to duplicate some of that bass from your subwoofer. Then you set the subwoofer to LFE plus mains. You get then the option to set a crossover frequency for your front, left, right speakers. The front, left, right speakers are still playing full range, but now let's say you set that crossover to 80 hertz. Now your subwoofer is also playing everything from 80 hertz on down. So now you have 3 sources of bass all playing. That's what the LFE plus mains is for. It isn't really what you want. You want your front, left, right set to small, your subwoofer set to LFE, but then you do have to use the stereo listening mode.
Yeah. So that he says, what if anything would be different if he sets it to LFE plus mains? Rob just described that. But basically, if your speakers can't play all the way down to 20 hertz, and you have them set to large, you run the risk of either just adding distortion or bad stuff to your playback, or possibly damaging your speakers. So that's would that do anything bad? Those are the bad things that can happen. Basically,
Yeah.
you're asking your speakers to play something that they're really not meant to play. It doesn't make the bass in your room any more even. If anything, it makes it less. If they could play all the way down to 20 hertz. So, yeah, turn it off. That's what it comes down to. Brandon's looking for some good surge protection, and he sort of recommended APC before. He was considering the H15, but he's read that voltage regulation can sometimes harm subwoofers and amps.
That could have been something you wrote.
I have often said that, and have
Yes.
it has happened to me before. So yes, you are right. He's using dual Power Sound Audio's V1500s, and he's definitely doesn't want to harm them. So should he avoid the H15? And how exactly is it a bad thing to have a voltage regulator connected to subwoofers or amplifiers? All right. The answer to this question is you plug the subwoofer directly into the wall, and you use the H15 for everything else. That's
Right?
That's
You can do that.
That's what I do. Okay, subwoofers have fuses, and they are pretty good about protecting themselves, so I don't worry about them that much. I don't get surges around here all that often, but I do occasionally get brownouts and blackouts and stuff because of lightning and everything else. If I'm running a risk, there are APC protectors which will not do any voltage regulation, just surge protection. You can add those. And just for just for your subs or your amps or whatever. Even the H15, I believe, will have it'll say amplifier output, and that one should be surge protected only and not voltage regulated that much.
No, because the H15 and the J15, they voltage regulate all the outputs. They have two that they call high current
That's the
that
ones
don't
I'm talking
choke. Yeah, they don't choke the 15 amps out of those two, but they still do apply voltage regulation to all of them. Something like the J35, 6 of its 8 outlets are voltage regulated. 2 of them are not. 2 of them say surge only. So it would be like the J35 would be an example.
It would be worth it to look into. I don't know that you got to get to J35 because that's probably a lot more expensive than the H15.
Right.
But it would be.
Well, actually, no, it's cheaper.
Which is
and it gives you batteries.
Oh, really? How much is that? Because I've got an H15. I didn't think it was that expensive. I thought you
had an H10.
I have an H10 as well. That's at my parents' house, but I have an H15. I'm looking at the H15. Is that H15? It says H15. Yeah. Anyhow, the problem is that when you go into voltage regulation, sometimes the amplifier on your subwoofer is asking for a huge power load, and the voltage regulation basically tries to feed it, but then clamps it down. Or I don't know exactly how this works, but it creates a kind of feedback loop where it asks for more power, more power, more power, more power until the fuse breaks on your sub. You keep blowing the fuse on your sub, and that's essentially what happens. So that's happened to me twice before and it was not. I mean, I've plugged other subwoofers into the H15, never had a problem. I plug in this one subwoofer, and it does. So it had something to do with the design of the amp that was inside the sub, which was a custom amp for that sub. It wasn't like an off-the-shelf. What's the amp that they use in the subwoofers all the time? Bash amp. It wasn't one of those.
Bash amp, yeah.
So could be that. So, I mean, I would still highly recommend the H15. I love mine. So.
But just not for your subwoofers.
Not for your subwoofers. Use something
or
else.
your high-powered amplifiers.
That's
right.
right.
Looking at the price, the H15, the full retail price is $450, while the J35 is $400. That's they're less expensive than that, but that's the full retail price.
So the J35 pay anywhere near that. I bought this thing too. I got it on Black Friday sale or something like that. I didn't pay anywhere near that. I think I paid $100 for it. Maybe 150. I don't really remember, but okay.
Yeah, the other thing you could do, because I mean I love having battery backup, Brandon. That to me that's more important than voltage regulation is having a battery backup, because you get a short blackout, your cable box keeps going and you don't lose your recording. Love that. So a J35 wouldn't be a bad choice, because anything that you want battery backup and voltage regulation has 6 outlets for that. 2 of its outlets are surge only, and it would be fine to plug your subwoofers into that. So if you want one unit that you plug everything into, that could be a good option. Just throwing it out there.
He asks if the H15 is a bad idea, which we're not saying it is. He's heard us recommend the APC P8V, which costs less, but doesn't provide any under voltage protection. Could under voltage potentially harm his subwoofers? And if so, what's the solution?
So the P8V is just a surge protector.
Yeah,
it's a surge protector that it does actually provide some filtering too, gets rid of some RF interference and electromagnetic interference, but it's a surge protector. That's what it is. What I like about it is that it doesn't choke the current at all. All 15 amps get through. So it's a very good unit to plug an amplifier or a subwoofer into if you just want some surge protection. Yeah.
I don't know that under voltage protection is something that I would.
Right, a voltage sag.
I mean,
right.
I've watched my thing. I've lived in 3 or 4 different houses, and I've never seen it sag more than like 4. So it's supposed to be 120
Right.
volts, right? It's like 116.
Yeah.
Seen it going up to 122, 123 a couple of times. So I mean, I don't know that this is something you need to worry about, like, literally at all.
I mean, it depends a little bit on the subwoofer, because the better designed amplifiers, they have really good power correction built into their power supplies anyway, which is why in their manuals they most often suggest just plug it straight into the wall. Don't plug it into anything, not even a P8V. They're just like, just plug it straight into the wall, because they're very good at correcting, reasonable under and over voltages. And they have, if they don't have a fuse, they have some kind of other protection so that if it goes outside of its range that it itself can correct, it shuts itself off to protect itself, or it blows the fuse. So for a subwoofer, and from Power Sound Audio, who use quality amplifiers,
Right.
I'm really not concerned about it at all.
I,
I might just plug it straight into the wall, honestly.
that's literally what I do. So I can only recommend the things that I do, and that's what I do.
Yeah.
Raul on Facebook. Raul wants a new subwoofer to replace an 8-inch Denon sub he's using right now. He'd love to get a giant SVS or HSU or Power Sound Audio sub, since he's dealing with 6,500 cubic feet. That would be big if we hadn't already dealt with a 30,000 cubic foot room. This
Right.
podcast already. 6,500 sounds kind of reasonable at this point. But his budget is strictly limited and needs something that he can buy in Mexico. Right. I remember this question coming in over the emails. He's basically looking in the $100 US price. $100?
That's, I mean, if you look up all of the
price
ones that
range.
he's listed for in the US, they're all around $100.
All right. He's putting together a list of what he's found so far, pretty much all of them being in the 10-inch models. So he's got the Boston Acoustics says CS sub 10.2, 10.2, 10 II, I guess. A couple of Yamaha models that are 10 inches as well. And one of them's 50 watts. Polk Audio
6,500 cubic feet.
Yeah, PSW 10, Dayton Audio sub 1000, Acoustic Audio, CSPS 10C. There's an 8-inch model for Mono Price and a 10-inch model for Mono Price. Can we offer any guidance or suggestions?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd suggest saving up more money. Is that an option? Can we suggest that? Is that a bad thing to say? Because that's the $100 price range, dude, is, and believe me, I want you to know I am coming at you from a place of I have totally been there before. I have
Absolutely.
bought a $100 sub, and let me tell you something about that $100 sub. To this day, I hate that sub more than I have hated any piece of audio equipment, because there was nothing it could do that I did not hate. It did not add anything good to my system. I just was resentful of the fact that I had spent $100 on a sub that literally did not do anything to help the sound of my room.
I mean, to me, this is a little bit. Remember, we had that listener from India
Yeah.
in quite a similar situation. Honestly, I mean, for this price range, I don't know. I mean, out of these options, I would pick the Dayton.
It's
All right. If these are the only ones you have access to, I would pick the Dayton.
Yeah.
So I'll give you that much out of this list. If you've got some time and you can research a little more, they're not going to be at this price range. They're going to be more expensive. But Velodyne and Klipsch both offer nice, capable subwoofers. They're not going to fill 6,500 cubic feet, but he already knows that and accepts that. That's okay. But Velodyne and Klipsch, they're available pretty much worldwide. I'm certain you can find both of those brands in Mexico. They're not going to be as low priced as these options, but they have certainly less expensive than like the SVSs or the HSUs, importing an HSU or something like that. Definitely less expensive than that, and more capable than any of the ones on this list. So I would urge you to look at what you can find from Klipsch and Velodyne. If it's still too expensive and you're just like, I gotta get something better than this Denon that came from a home theater in a box, I would go for the Dayton out of this list. That's my suggestion.
I'm gonna be dead honest with you, dude. There's really nothing on this list that's going to be significantly better than the Denon that you've got.
Right.
It's,
I mean, all of them are going to get gobbled up by 6,500 cubic feet.
Well, and that's what it comes down to.
Inevitable.
It's just, and I don't want you to go from a terrible subwoofer to a slightly less terrible subwoofer and be out $100. I love Boston Acoustics. I like that company.
Sure.
This sub is probably not going to be any. Their sub here is not going to be any better than the one that you got from this Denon.
Yeah.
Save up. Velodyne is a good suggestion. You can get a lot of sub for a little bit of money from them if you go with their entry level stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean,
something like their Impact 10, also a 10-inch sub, but it's not at this price range. It's more expensive than any of these. So, I mean, I really don't want you to feel like we're trying to put you down or something like that, because that is not. We're trying to get you value for your money. We don't want to see you spend what you have on something that is going to leave you totally wanting, because what is the point of that?
Yeah.
Right? To me, that's not
the news you want to hear. And believe me, dude, I was in the same boat. I was like, how can I live in this house with no subwoofer? The other thing to do, and this is what you can do to pass the time while you're saving money, is whatever your version of Craigslist is there, or eBay or whatever.
Right.
Keep your eyes open, because they come around. They do. They come around, and you can find a decent sub for probably this money, which would be better. And I mean, if you probably won't have time to ask us about it, though, you can email Rob and say urgent, and he will probably answer you right away. I can't promise that. I mean, you could do it to me as well, and I might answer it as well. But I mean, just like some general principle, 10, 12-inch sub, 253, 500 watt amplifier, something with ports, if at all possible. Just sort of like, if you see like a 50 watt amplifier, 100 watt amplifier, 150 watt amplifier on something, it's just not going to do it. You don't even have to look any further than that. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So
Klipsch, Velodyne, and Yamo as well. Yamo is actually part of the same company.
Right.
So if you keep an eye out for those three brands on classified ads, basically Craigslist and that.
Yeah.
If you come across something that could be worth hopping on.
Yeah. Sorry, man. We really wish we could help you, but
but we want you to get good value. That's where we're coming from.
This is taking good money and basically wasting it on something that you're not going to be happy with, and I can't in good conscience let you do that, not without me saying something about it. Rob W. Slightly different than our Rob. Different Rob. First, a couple of comments. Rob W. finally caved to our relentless marketing. Sorry, dude. I really got to stop putting it at the beginning of this podcast. And picked up Bob More No Hero. He quickly bought Desperate Times. So good job, I guess. Thank you. I hope you liked him. There's one more book out there after that one. He also... I hate
all that money rolling into you.
That
so much
fat cash. People are like, I remember I posted No Hero to Wattpad, which is a free thing that you can. And I got somebody posting, well, maybe after you make all your money on Desperate Times, you'll post that here too. I'm like, I think you know how the internet works. I don't know how much money you think I'm making on these books, but anyways, he also watched Mad Max Fury Road in 3D at a friend's house and on a LG E6 OLED. The passive 3D in 1080p per eye really made him appreciate 3D at home for the first time. So now he better understands your position, Rob. So Rob and Rob are coming together.
It is a shame that we finally have 4K resolution, so that if you do passive 3D, you get 1080p per eye.
Yeah.
With these very bright panels that can finally make 3D not look dim. So we finally have the panels and the technology to deliver excellent looking 3D. And but 3D's dead. So that's a shame.
Well, that Laco one that they reviewed at the beginning of the podcast has 3D.
It's active shutter 3D though.
It has 3D. I mean, it's got something.
It has 3D.
You could play
Sony Z9D has 3D as well, but it's active shutter. So I want the passive 3D. So much
never good enough for you, Rob. It's never good enough for the Robs. Anyways,
can never have it all.
He had originally planned on using 2 rooms in his basement, one as a dedicated theater, one as a games room with a pool table. His wife has decided their kids need a playroom, so now a single room needs to house both the home theater and the pool table. Kids don't like to play pool? You can't let the kids play pool? The kids don't like pool? Come on. What is up with that? Kids love pool.
Take up the whole playroom, but yeah.
So there's a room that's 23 feet 8 inches by 19 feet 2 inches by 9 feet. So it's 4,100 cubic feet. So you can fit the pool table at the back of the home theater, at the back, and the home theater at the front. But since the pool table needs a space of about 15 feet by 19 feet to play without banging the pool cues on things, it's basically going to be sitting about 8 feet from ice to screen.
Yeah.
All right. So he's originally playing on a 120-inch screen with a JVC X570 projector, but with this new shorter seating distance, would a flat panel make more sense? If so, what size and brand model should he consider? He wouldn't want it to cost more than the projection setup was going to cost. So he's going to sit 8 feet from his thing.
And that was a $4,000 projector plus whatever screen.
Whatever screen. So you could get that 85-inch Leco one that we were just talking about, right?
It's $5,500, which is probably a little bit more than the projector and screen. Let's say it was going to go for quite an expensive screen. But $5,500 for an 85-inch, that gets you darn close to a 45-degree viewing angle from 8 feet away. So that's very cinematic.
Or you could do just a projector.
That's an option.
You could still do the projector. There's nothing that says you can't do the projector.
You could. It would be a smaller screen. You go for like a 92-inch screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's an affordable screen.
Yeah. So like $100-something at Amazon, silver ticket. That's what mine is, 92.
Yeah. However, I'm guessing there's probably going to be some ambient light in this room. So flat panel does kind of make sense, but you are looking on the larger side. I mean, the other good affordable option would be the 80-inch M series from Vizio. All right, that could be a very good option if you want. 80 inches gets you about a 40-degree field of view from 8 feet away.
You cut out. Can you just tell me what you said?
Oh, I was saying the 80-inch M series from Vizio.
Oh, Vizio. Okay, yeah.
So they have an 80-inch, which is $4,000. Yeah,
that'd be all right.
That'd be all right.
So anyways, he asks, is there a better layout that could allow the home theater area to be larger? Yeah, put the pool table in the kids' room. Put the pool table in the kids' room. Come on.
That was the original plan. It was the original plan.
Yeah. Okay. So is this in the basement? This is not in the basement? It's not. No. It's just a
basement
normal room. It is a basement?
No, it's basement.
Okay.
Yeah, it's basement.
Turn your couches so that you are facing the long wall.
But then you only have like a 9-foot width.
Yeah, but you would.
And then one side is very open.
It's gonna be very open, anyways.
Yeah, but at least the back is open right now. I think his layout is the right layout for this room.
I mean,
that's my opinion.
It's fine. Put the thing in the other room.
I mean, how important is it to... Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess if you want to sit more than 8 feet from ice to screen, which I can understand. But I think he's got the right layout. I think that's the way to go.
Yeah. That's fine.
Yep.
So with the long distance to that back wall, would it be still worth it to use surround back speakers? He had originally planned a 7.2.4 setup, but if a 5.2.4 setup would work better in his layout, he could save money with a less expensive receiver and no external amp. Yeah, I would totally go with 5.2.4. That's what I would go with. You could do the surround backs, but you'll end up having to put the surround backs on the ceiling, pretty much, because you don't want them to be on the other side. I mean, way back there, they would be ridiculously loud.
I mean, people think that because visually it seems like it's way off balance, but you're talking about them being 15 feet away.
Yeah.
Right? Now, 15 feet away is farther than most people have their surround back speakers, but it's still not in the grand scheme. There are plenty of people who sit 15 feet from their front speakers.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what difference is it to sit 15 feet from your back speakers?
Yeah.
Right? It's not that big a difference. So to me, it's dealer's choice. If you're like, you know what, I really wouldn't mind paying a little bit less, not having an external amp, doing 5.2.4, I'm like, you can absolutely make that argument here. But if you really want to do 7.2.4, having your surround back speakers 15 feet away from you at the back of the room totally works.
It's not the end of the world.
No.
My concern is less about that and more about if you're going to be watching TV while somebody else is playing pool or sitting back there talking or whatever, those back speakers are going to be calibrated so that they are the same volume.
That's true.
At your couch,
at your seat,
as the speakers that are much, much closer to you, which means they're going to have to be really stupid loud, which will be fine because you won't hear them that way. You'll hear them at the normal volume. But anybody who's at the back of the room while this is going on is going to be like, seriously, can we turn these speakers off back here? So my thought would be, you'd rather have them up high, on the ceiling. So just do top rears.
5.2.4. Yeah.
That's my thought.
Yep. Oh yeah, I can dig that argument for sure.
That makes more sense to me. So here owns a Purion Intimus 5 series speakers and the SVS PB12 NSD subwoofer. He's planning on adding a SVS PC2000 sub. Will these be fine for his room size?
Well, the speakers from 8 feet away, completely fine.
Completely fine, right. So 6,500 square feet. The PB12 NSD is isn't that about the same? It's not quite as good as the 2000, but it's the same.
Well, yeah, it's what the 2000 replaced directly. Yeah.
I don't know.
4,100 cubic feet. I think you're fine.
It's.
I really think you're fine.
Yeah, I think it's. I mean,
it's. If you want to hit 115 dB, then not quite.
No.
But
I think for the most part, you're going to be. I would not. If it were me, that's what I would do. I'll put you that way.
Right.
Because I
wouldn't be stressing about this.
No.
I mean, if you know for a fact that nothing less than 115 dB will satisfy you, then the strict answer is no, right? But I really don't think you need 115 dB. In which case,
gonna sink the balls for you. You don't even have to play pool. You just have to turn on the subs.
I would feel absolutely fine using 2000 series, 12 NSD series subwoofers in this size of room. I would feel absolutely fine doing that.
So he asks, is an exterior grade door really necessary in order to reduce sound transmission to the adjacent rooms, or will cheaper interior doors work nearly as well? Well, the idea of the exterior grade doors, which first of all, I've never had anybody ask this question before.
Oh. It comes up from time to time, forums and soundproofing company and that.
But the idea is that they have more mass, therefore.
And they're weather stripped around their edges.
Which is fine, but okay. First of all, I'm looking at this. Let's look at the picture again. You got the picture up? So you've got this thing, then you've got a playroom, then you've got a bedroom. Now, where are you worried about the sound going to? Is it to that bedroom? Because it's got 2 doors to go through, 2 rooms to go through. I would not worry about it. Are you worried about going through the
playroom?
Could be
playroom.
It could be anything in there. It's a big ball pit. It's full of absorptive stuff. So, I mean, I don't know that I would worry too much about it. But it really depends on where you're worrying about the sound traveling to. Because if you're worried about the sound getting into the playroom, well, then the door will help. Unless you have other ways for it to get through, which you probably will, unless you're doing some serious soundproofing. Are you worried about going upstairs? Because that door ain't doing crap about going upstairs. Okay? In which case you need to start talking.
Whatever's going on in your ceiling and floor.
That's right. Yeah. So
above you.
Will it work nearly as well? No. But do you care? Probably no. Because, whoever's in the playroom is not going to care that you're listening to music or watching a movie in the other room. They're probably in there with you. Who's in the playroom while you're watching movies? And if it's the bedroom.
What I would suggest is splitting the difference, which is going solid core interior door.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you go with the standard hollow core interior door, those don't block much sound at all. I mean, especially not bass. Bass goes right through those things. Muffles your voices a little bit, muffles the high frequencies, but, your standard hollow core interior door, I wouldn't do that. But a solid core interior door, to me, is a great way to split the difference between that and a full exterior grade door. I don't think you need to go exterior grade. I just go solid core.
This is literally the only question about soundproofing he's asked. There is no way this man is soundproofing this room and the door is the cherry on top. Because that's what it needs to be, right? You've already done everything else. You've got, a dead air intake and everything else. And dead room. What did I say? Dead air?
Dead vent.
Dead vent. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
So, I honestly think the exterior door is completely overkill in this unless you're planning on
But
doing
I
a
think
lot more.
solid core makes sense. Solid core is more expensive than hollow core, of course, but it's not as expensive as an exterior grade.
I'm
door,
looking
so
at your setup,
split
right?
the difference.
I've got like the kitchen and whatever it is on the other side of my door. I have a hollow core normal door. No big deal. I could see light, I could see the gap underneath the door. I could put my fingers underneath there, no problem. I mean, it's big.
That's your air return.
Exactly. But I'm listening to reference volume in here at night. And my wife is on the other side, like through the room. There's another door, and then there's the bedroom.
Right.
And she's a light sleeper. I'm telling you.
Now,
the
out
door is
directly
not the
outside
issue.
the door of your theater, you can hear
Oh,
when
yeah.
you're playing something inside your theater.
Absolutely.
It's not silent on the other side of the
No,
door.
you can totally hear it. Yeah, but we can all be out there having a conversation. Nobody, you hear every
Right.
once in a while we'll go, "Wow, what was that?" I'm like, "That, it's a subwoofer." Oh,
That was some Pacific Rim.
remind me to tell you the story of proudness at the end of this podcast. We'll talk about
Okay.
it before the podcast ends. So he said there are 4 other rooms in the basement where he'd like to install in-ceiling speakers and have distributed audio using Chromecast audio. Doesn't want to spend more than $500 per room. He's thinking of 4 speakers per room. So what is a good distribution audio solution in this case, and what in-ceiling speakers would we recommend given the limited budget? So we've just talked about this. The Emotiva distribution app.
Nah,
It sounds.
good. I'd go the Dayton.
I
You
agree
get
with
more
you.
channels for the same money.
Yeah, it sounds like you're only going to have one source, in which case it's going to be all on or on off.
Or he could have Chromecast audios because they're only $35 a pop. You could have one plugged in for each room because
Could
you
be.
can group Chromecast audios inside the app.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, just any distribution app will probably do this. The Dayton Audio,
Yeah.
I think I like better as well. I think that
Yeah.
you're not having huge rooms, and with 4 speakers. I'll be honest with you, it sounds like a little bit overkill to me. Doesn't sound like you need 4 speakers per.
but I mean, you can still series or parallel wire them.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
but yeah, you get 12 channels of amplification with a Dayton.
Yeah.
So to me, that's very cost effective
That's
for
that.
what you wanted to do here.
MA1240A multi-zone amplifier.
Yeah, that's the 40 watt per channel one. They have a 60 watt per channel one for more money if you want to do that.
Yeah.
But $500, 12 channels, 40 watts per channel, pretty good.
There you go. And then I guess speakers.
And then-
Any sort of in-ceiling speakers you can find that are inside your price range, because this is distributed audio. So there's the mono price ones. I thought mono price ones that are supposed to
They're
be.
the monoprice ones. I go the Outdoor Speaker Depot ones, the MK series. You got the MK 650s, $99 per pair.
Yeah, I'd go to Accessories
should
for Less
fit
as
within
well
this
and check out to see what they have there
Sure.
on sale. They'll probably have some KEF stuff in there that might sound pretty good. So
Yep.
go take a look at that.
But yeah, I mean, $100 a pair for the speakers, $500 for a 12-channel distribution amp, and some Chromecast audios. I believe you can get this done.
Yeah, see, it was $500 per room. So that distribution
room,
app
yeah.
is for all the rooms, and then
Is
you're
all
going to
the rooms, that's
spend
$500.
$200 per room for speakers.
For speakers, and $35 per room for a Chromecast audio. So
If
I
if
think
you
we
would be
can hit that budget.
Yeah.
That's pretty darn good sound too.
Yep.
That's nothing to scoff at.
All right, this is the podcast. I do want to tell you my story of my son. So, I don't remember how it came. We went roller skating this weekend because my wife wanted to go roller skating for part of her birthday thing. She wanted to have an active weekend, so we went roller skating. And she likes to roller skate, and the kids like it too. So my son was saying, I was saying they had turned the last time we were there. It was really super loud, and I had complained about it. So this time it wasn't as loud. My son said, "Oh, well, they got rid of the speakers that were in the corners." I said, "Those weren't speakers; those
Okay.
were subwoofers." He says, "What's a subwoofer?" I'm like, "I'll tell you later. I'll tell you later." So we
How is that a phrase that came from one of your?
he is
children's
11 years
mouths?
old. Believe me, this is you do not force your hobby upon your children. You
True.
let your hobby interest your children. So we get home, and after everybody's relaxing and stuff like that, I said subwoofer is a type of speaker. I said there's speakers. All of speakers are speakers, right? These are electromagnetic devices that will transmit sound. That's a speaker. Okay, you got speakers in your headphones, speakers in your cell phones. You got speakers in the home theater. Subwoofer is a type of speaker. It plays very low notes, some of which you can't hear, but you can feel. That's why they call it a subwoofer. They play subsonic notes. He says, "Oh, okay." Last night we watched the first Avengers movie. All the boys, my wife was at book club, so all the boys and I sat down and we were watching the first Avengers movie, and starts off big explosion. The thing is coming down, and the couch is shaking. And I look over at my son. I say, "Do you feel the couch shaking?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "That's subwoofers, son. That's subwoofers."
Yep.
So yes, I was like, "Oh, God." Now I haven't said anything about it since. I'm hoping that he'll get more interested and ask more about the speakers that are in here. But he's the first one. I have only once before, I think my eldest son one time came back from somebody's house and their TV sounded weird. I was like, yes. Yes, it did.
When they complain about soap opera effect, then you know.
Then my work here is done.
Really started to absorb. I wanted to mention I went and saw Alien Covenant. It's actually getting pretty good reviews, and it did quite well. I wasn't a big fan of it, so I guess I'm a contrarian, but whatever. But no, I have taken to going to D-Box viewings because I like having the two armrests and nobody kicking the back of my seat ever, because the way the seats are set up, it's kind of impossible for that to happen. So
D-Box, can you turn those things off so they don't move?
You can turn it off. You can absolutely turn it off.
Oh my God, that's amazing. I'm not going to pay to go turn off a chair, though, but yeah.
But I like having the, reserved seat, two armrests, nobody kicking my seat. That's what I like. So I've gone to the D-Box ones. Now, I usually try it on the low set. I've never gone more than the low setting, but just to try it out, right? Alien Covenant, for being a horror/action movie, had the least use of D-Box of any D-Box movie I've ever seen. I'm like, why is nothing it's not like it never moved or never shook or never thumped you in the back. It did a few times, but I'm like, what a jip. Like, what the heck, man? Like, when I saw Guardians of the Galaxy, I turned that on. I'm like, it was moving all the time. All the time it was moving. And the crazy Gatling gun scene, that was like absolute massage, right? So I was like, okay, they totally used D-Box in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Alien Covenant, I'm like, what a jip. So don't see it in D-Box if you like D-Box. I'm like, they completely didn't use it. Weird.
I can't imagine that anybody likes that stuff. I mean, I've experienced it one time and I was like, turn it off now. Make this stop. How is this? What am I? In the ride at Disneyland? Come on. All right. This is AV Rant, the podcast that answers your home theater and AV question, that gets your questions answered. All you have to do is ask. You ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. You can go to www.avrant.com. Leave a comment there. Facebook.com/avrantpodcast. YouTube.com/c/avrant. Facebook, I already did. Yes? Did I do Facebook?
I think so. Facebook.com/avrantpodcast. Doesn't hurt to say it again.
I'm so old and tired. I'm ready for vacation.
avrant.com. That's the website.
Yeah. Contact us directly, rob@avrant.com, or at First Reflect for Twitter, Tom at avrant.com, at avrant_Tom for me. For our producer, Austin, who puts together our videos and helps with the question list, you can reach him at Austin, TN it's his Twitter handle. He has his own podcast, We Watch Movies podcast about the repelling force of magnets and how it can be used to move things, maybe.
Wow. Your best work ever, Tom.
Literally the worst podcast. They're like, what can you move with this? Other magnets. So what do you do with it? Well, you attach magnets.
Only repulsion. They don't talk about how magnets can attract.
Not interested.
Only how they can repel one another.
That's for the casuals. The casual magnet lovers do the attraction.
That's why
part.
it's we watch movies and not we experience or we hear movies. Only watch because it's only the repulsion of magnets.
That's right.
Important.
I must have had something better on my list. That was the only one that popped into my head. I was trying not to look. Oh, I do have it to get the one back there, but I'll save that one for next one. For AV Rant, I'm Tom Andrew.
And I'm Rob H. Now go out and listen to something.